Here at the pub yesterday, a guy rocked up, pulled up a stool and said, "I'm thinking about voting for one of the minor parties, but would I be wasting my vote?"
Yes, that's a common thing around election time. When I was campaigning, it was really soul destroying to have people come up to me saying, "I love your party and its initiatives, its policy initiatives, but I'm really worried that I'm going to waste my vote, so I think I'll have to vote for the National Party."
Okay, so welcome to the VoterTorque podcast series. Today it's the dilemma of the wasted vote, the continuing series of the on MMP. I'm Simon Ewing-Jarvie.
And I'm Heather Roy.
So, Heather, tell us a bit more about this wasted vote situation.
Yes, well, people worry that they're going to cast their vote and the party that they vote for won't get in. So we're talking about party vote here. Sometimes that is the case, but most often not. And what my response to people who used to say that to me was, if you really believe in a party, you should support it, because that's the only way we will get a truly representative parliament.
Yeah, I guess in a sporting analogy, if you're saying, "Oh, I really want to back the Hurricanes in Super Rugby, but normally they lose it at the final and the Crusaders usually win, so I guess I'll back the Crusaders."
Yeah, it's very similar actually. That's a good analogy. And the small parties that have the benefit of an electorate seat, of course the vote is never wasted for them. It's the parties who are unlikely to win an electorate seat where the real dilemma of wasting your vote does happen.
So what happens if I vote for a party that doesn't actually get into Parliament, what happens to my vote?
All of those votes are redistributed across the other parties, and like everything else in our MMP system, that works on proportionality. So the wasted votes are all tallied up and then distributed, and the party that, say, gets 50% of the vote gets 50% of those wasted votes, and so on.
Right, okay. So and that's only the party vote, that's not relevant for the electorate votes. In a previous podcast, we talked about the different combinations that occur. So you've got, for instance, at the moment the ACT Party with one electorate seat and no list MPs, and you've got the Green Party with no electorate seat but a whole lot of list MPs, and that's geared around the 5% threshold, isn't it, Heather?
So at the moment with our MMP system we have a 5% threshold. That means if a party doesn't win any electorate seats, it must get 5% of the vote to have a presence in Parliament. That's a pretty tall order. That's a lot of votes to get there, and it makes it very hard for any new parties to break into Parliament. Sometimes it also makes it very hard for parties that are there to get across that threshold and come back. Right,
so when you were you were one of 5 MPs in your last term, but ACT didn't get the 5% threshold, but they had won the Epsom seat.
That's right, because Epsom was as an electoral win for ACT. Any party vote that the party got on election day then was tallied up in the system to work out how many MPs we would get. And you're right, we got 5 MPs that time, but around just close to 4% of the vote.
Right. And then you've got to put together, if no one gets over 50%, 50 plus 1, then you've got to put together some sort of government, multi-party government. How does that work?
Sometimes you end up with a formal coalition. That means a smaller party joins a larger party and sits around the cabinet table. And sometimes you have an informal coalition where a party will agree to support the government on issues of confidence and supply. Those are the very important issues, but they technically sit on the cross benches and so have quite a lot of freedom to criticise the government.
Yeah, so that escapes the collective responsibility of the cabinet.
It does. You're only responsible, ministers in that situation are only responsible for their particular portfolio. They do have the freedom to criticise government on other things.
Is a cabinet minister that's outside cabinet, or a minister that's outside cabinet, any more powerful or less powerful than those that are in?
I don't believe so, and I was a minister outside cabinet. I think you're still responsible for your portfolio area, and you have all of the input that you would have whether you were sitting around the cabinet table or not.
Okay.
Simon, I think it's your turn for a quote.
And I have one from Milton Friedman, 1962. "Only a crisis, actual or perceived, produces real change. When that crisis occurs, the actions that are taken depend on the ideas that are lying around. That, I believe, is our basic function, to develop alternatives to existing policies, to keep them alive and available until the politically impossible becomes the politically inevitable.
Well, that takes me straight to the election that David Lange won with the Labour Party when the country was essentially bankrupt, and the politically impossible previously did become politically inevitable because there was no other choice.
Yeah, well, we might be in similar space with the post-COVID economics.
Indeed we might.
Okay, well, that's it from us today. If you would like to send us your questions to cover in future podcasts, please get onto the contacts page at our website, torquepoint.co.nz. That's TORQUE point. And you can also find us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and so on. I'm Simon Ewing-Jarvie.
And I'm Heather Roy.
Talk to you later.